Hey guys, Booligan here with Booligan Shooting Sports. Today, in a little bit of a new studio that I'm kind of still figuring out the lighting and the sound on, but we're taking a look at a new 3D printed firearm that I designed and built. This is, well, it doesn't really have a name yet. I've kind of taken to calling it the Space Gat 22 because, I mean, look at this thing. It looks like a space gun. It uses a CMMG dedicated 22 long rifle barrel, as well as a CMMG 22 long rifle bolt carrier setup, which is why it is able to run without a buffer assembly. These are both commonly available parts, very easy to find usually, and around $300 for that combo. Let's sort of dive into this thing and talk about the theory of it and how I designed it and how it sort of came to be. If you guys recall my previous video where I built the Jeff Goldblum inspired AR-22, that thing, I love it. I think it's fantastic, and a lot of you guys really loved it too. A lot of people commented on that video saying, "Hey, that thing kind of looks like a bolter from 40K, or it's very space-like. You should make something a little bit more space-like." So I did. What I did, go ahead and remove the special magazine that I designed here for it. What I did is I redesigned the lower receiver. Has a cutout here that allows the use of that smaller magazine. It also still does allow use of full-size magazines. And we could pop one of those in there just to sort of show how that looks. That's awesome. But it allows the use of normal CMMG style magazines, but just in a different lower profile look. I also got rid of some extraneous features like the bolt hold open. That really isn't necessary on the CMMG system, because unless you add a little modifier to that, you can't even really use the last round bolt hold open. So after I redesigned the lower, I was looking at upper designs, and I wasn't happy with the way that a normal upper integrated with the lower. So I looked on CtrlPew and Deterrence Dispensed and saw the, I believe it's pronounced Daiichi printable 22 caliber upper receiver. So I dropped that in the files, and then I tweaked it and I blew it up a little bit so that you would have a sort of flush surface with the thicker lower receiver, sort of building an integrated look. Well, in doing that and then reshaping the lower receiver, my handguard design was obsolete. So I designed a new handguard. This guy's lower profile and rounder and very, very comfortable to use, especially with this bolt up here, kind of acts as a bit of a hand stop, or like a thumb rest, and then you got the hand stop up front to keep it safe. I found a nice pistol grip file that I liked that met the look. I reshaped the contour of the Picatinny mount at the rear so that it would better fit with both a brace and, when it's in pistol form, strictly 100% handgun form like this, it would be lower profile, lower snag, less likely to kind of catch your hand. But I'd also designed a cover for it that you can attach that acts as a sling mount. I've always loved the idea of little carry handle sight rail things on these. So I tweaked, again, the original file that I had and have it now set up to have an integrated RMR style mount at the rear. This is fitted with just a cheap eBay RMR style red dot sight. It's not an actual RMR, but it is now integrated for lower 1/3 co-witness with the integrated iron sights that are designed into this. It is fitted with a standard mil-spec bolt, fire control group, just missing a couple of parts that you would normally have, like the, the lower parts kit. We don't use the bolt hold open. We don't use like the rear detent and spring and things like that. Up front, before I just had this with a barrel nut, and then I decided to redesign a barrel nut that looks kind of cool and brings it up all the way to the front of the muzzle just to prevent any sort of backblast that could potentially come through there. I'm actually still experimenting with this, but currently these ports up front are theoretically functional. There are holes that go all the way through that are designed and printed in. This is printed at 100% PLA+. It is a very solid piece. I don't know how well it's going to hold up. 22 long rifle doesn't exactly kick out a ton of excess forces and gases and stuff like that. So I feel like this should be fine, but we will see. We'll be testing out this as part of this process. I like how this looks with the long mag, but what I really liked is the idea of having just sort of a short mag. Now this guy doesn't have a follower in it currently. I'm still working on the follower design. The follower design is locked in. It's more the correct spring for it. But this guy just sort of, pops in place there, and it should hold between like 8 and 10 rounds. Realistically, I don't know yet because, as I said, I haven't got a spring that is able to work. But it is very comfortable when holding like that. It doesn't throw off the balance or anything like that when it is just being held in single point mode. Cool part about this gun is its modular nature. Do you want to run a longer mag? Sure, pop that out, put a longer mag in. Do you want to run a brace, a folding brace setup instead of this sling mount? Perfect. The folding brace is something that I designed and it works fantastically on here. It's just not pictured, just to kind of change the look of this a little bit. Do you not like this, big carry handle up top? Perfect. Take it off. There's just a normal flat top railed upper receiver and handguard setup. So it's very easy to run it however you'd like. On the side of cosmetics, I did want to add just a few kind of spacey looking features. Up front, you'll see we've got caution, because for some reason space guns always tend to have unnecessary cautions. And, well, mine could be no exception to that rule. So it says caution on there. And then I added a little BCG for Booligan Custom Gunworks. Just has a cool name. Why not run it? Thing I get asked on my 3D printed firearm videos all the time is, where can I get the files? And in general, my answer has been, you can't. I've explained my hesitations with that and my reasonings behind why I generally do not release my files in previous videos. However, I have been working with CtrlPew. I've been working with Deterred Dispensed. This file, or this whole printable setup, is now in closed beta. So we are beta testing it. We have other people printing this design and are going to give feedback. We're going to do some tweaks to it. And then this will be a full public release through Deterrence Dispensed. I do not have an estimated date for that. Probably going to be sometime towards the tail end of first quarter 2021. But for now, there are other people that are testing it out in the closed beta, and we are, polishing it up and making it perfect. How I printed this, because this has a printed upper, because this has more printed parts than my previous guns, this was a long and grueling build. The actual printed components on this are the grip, the lower receiver, the sling mount rail cover here, the upper receiver, the handguard, the barrel nut is printed, and we'll talk about that in just a second, and then this flat top carry handle, as well as this magazine, the follower, the base plate, and the little guy that locks the spring and the base plate in place. The only purchased parts for this are that CMMG bolt and barrel assembly, an AR fire control group with safety selector and magazine release, and a charging handle. However, I'm part of a beta test group for a printable fire control group, so you would theoretically be able to print your trigger. Awesome. There are also several printable charging handles that I will be experimenting with. I also might do a version 2 that has a side charger, because I like the idea of not having to reach back here to charge the gun. And overall, it is a very, very printable project. This is printed in eSun PLA+, which is always going to be a strong recommendation for printing firearm and firearm components is PLA+. especially E-Sun. It's consistent, it's great to work with. I really like it. It doesn't do anything funky when you try to print with it. Print orientation of things. The pistol grip prints upside down, the receiver prints right side up, the upper receiver prints vertically, the handguard prints vertically that way, this guy prints flat, angled on the bed, and these are all printed on an Ender 3, and this is maxing out what you can print on an Ender 3 as far as size, especially this carry handle sight rail thing. It is corner to corner about as big as you can get on an Ender 3. But yeah, so this is the Space Gat 22. I think it's a very cool gun. I love the aesthetics of it. I love the way it feels. It should shoot just fine. It should shoot just the same as my other AR-22 because these CMMG systems are very reliable. When you're feeding it the correct ammo, they work really quite well. They don't impart a lot of forces into the receivers itself. I don't have any concerns about the receivers breaking on these. Using a printed upper versus an aluminum upper is different for me, but this guy is chunky. It is quite thick and reinforced everywhere, front, rear, everywhere. This thing is reinforced, so it should be able to take the brunt of firing, no problem whatsoever. It should last for thousands of rounds without issue, and if it doesn't, if we have a failure point, if we start noticing cracks, you just print another one. Material costs. This used almost an entire spool of E-Sun PLA Plus, just shy of 1 kilogram. So for for printing costs, you're looking $25, $30, depending on your price of filament. For parts costs, the CMMG kits are a little hard to find right now, but I had one from before. You can usually find the kit with the barrel for $250, $300 when they're in stock. It just sort of depends. A lower parts kit, the fire control group that you would need is like $30, $40, and a charging handle's $10. But again, these parts may be printable in the future. I'm working on that, so that really you just need to buy the CMMG kit and maybe like a magazine release. So yes, that is the Space Gun 22. Space Gat 22, excuse me, the SG22. It will probably have a different name because that's kind of a terrible name, and that's part of the beta test, is figuring out a better name to call it. Many thanks to you guys for continuing to support the channel, for continuing to watch this stuff. If you are interested in 3D printed guns, I will highly recommend watching the video linked up here, where I go over the legalities of how to 3D print and things like that. Definitely also support and check out Deterrence Dispensed, as well as CtrlPew. Yeah, awesome guys, and very, very good to work with. And frankly, they're sort of leading the charge with 3D printed firearms. So definitely check them out and support them however you can. And of course, thanks for watching.